Like every day we kill people.
Turf battles between feuding gangs means hundreds of lives are lost every year.
Africa, a continent of immense beauty and rich culture, but beneath the surface lies a darker side. Today we delve into the shadowy underworld of the 5 most dangerous gangs in Africa. Prepare for a thrilling journey into the heart of crime, power, and survival. From the bustling streets of Johannesburg to the war-torn regions of Somalia, gangs have established a fearsome presence. These groups are not just petty criminals, they are powerful organizations with deep roots and far-reaching impacts. Join us as we uncover their stories, their rise to power, and the terror they instill. The Numbers Gang. The Numbers Gang, South Africa's most notorious and feared prison syndicate. Known for their ruthless operations and strict hierarchy, this gang controls life inside and outside the prison walls. If you're from South Africa, you probably must have heard of this gang. Originating in the late 1800s, the Numbers Gang was born out of the brutal labor camps in South Africa. Prisoners, seeking protection and survival, formed this brotherhood that has evolved into a powerful and organized criminal network. The gang is divided into 3 distinct groups: the 26S, 27S, and 28S, each with its unique role. First, we have the 26S, the moneymakers. They handle the financial operations, smuggling contraband, and bribing officials to keep the money flowing. Their expertise in smuggling and bribery ensures a steady income, making them indispensable to the gang's operations. Next, the 27S, the enforcers. Their job is to maintain order and discipline through fear and violence. They enforce the gang's rules with ruthless efficiency. Whether inside the prison or on the streets, the 27S instill fear and ensure the gang's dominance. Lastly, the 28S, the warriors. Known for their combat skills and fierce loyalty, they are the frontline soldiers in the gang's violent conflicts. From brutal initiation rituals to defending the gang's territory, the 28S are the embodiment of the gang's warrior spirit.
And I took the knife and stabbed him in his heart.
While their origins are in the prison system, the Numbers Gang's influence extends far beyond the prison walls. Released members continue their operations on the streets, dominating illicit markets and exerting significant influence in local communities. Their power even reaches the political sphere, where they manipulate elections and exert pressure on officials operating with relative impunity. Combating the Numbers Gang is a daunting task. Corruption within the prison system and law enforcement complicates efforts to dismantle their networks. Boko Haram. Boko Haram, a name synonymous with terror. More than just a gang, Boko Haram is a militant group that has wreaked havoc across Nigeria and neighboring countries. Their name translates to "Western education is forbidden," reflecting their extremist ideology. Founded by Mohammed Yusuf in 2002, Boko Haram started as a small group with radical beliefs, opposing Western education and seeking to establish an Islamic state. Their early activities were relatively low-key, focusing on preaching and recruiting members. In 2009, a military crackdown led to the death of Mohammed Yusuf, sparking a transformation in Boko Haram's tactics and leadership. Under the command of Abu Bakr Shekau, the group turned increasingly violent and adopted guerrilla warfare tactics. Boko Haram's brutality knows no bounds. Their tactics include bombings, assassinations, and mass kidnappings. One of their most infamous acts was the abduction of 276 schoolgirls from Chibok in 2014, which drew international outrage and highlighted their ruthless nature. The abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls brought Boko Haram international notoriety. Global leaders condemned the act, and campaigns like Bring Back Our Girls gained widespread support. Despite these efforts, many of the girls remain missing to this day. Boko Haram's impact extends far beyond immediate violence. Their attacks have destabilized entire regions, leading to significant displacement and humanitarian crises. Millions have been forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge from the terror. The human cost of Boko Haram's terror is staggering. Displaced families live in overcrowded refugee camps, struggling with inadequate food, water, and medical care. The psychological scars run deep, with countless victims suffering from trauma and loss. Fighting Boko Haram has proven to be a formidable challenge. Nigerian government forces, often supported by neighboring countries and international allies, engage in ongoing battles to curb the group's influence. Despite some successes, Boko Haram remains a persistent threat. Boko Haram's reach extends beyond Nigeria, affecting neighboring countries like Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. Their cross-border raids and alliances with other terrorist organizations, such as ISIS, amplify their menace. The international community continues to develop strategies to combat Boko Haram and similar extremist groups. Efforts include military intervention, intelligence sharing, and addressing the root causes of extremism, such as poverty and lack of education. Education and community development are crucial in countering Boko Haram's influence. Initiatives aimed at providing schooling, vocational training, and economic opportunities help rebuild communities and offer a path away from extremism. If you think these groups are deadly, then wait till you hear the next on our list. Al-Shabaab. Somalia's ruthless insurgents, an Al-Qaeda affiliate that operates primarily in Somalia and parts of Kenya. Their ultimate goal, to establish a strict Sharia law state. Emerging from the remnants of the Islamic Courts Union, Al-Shabaab quickly gained a reputation for their ruthless insurgency. Al-Shabaab, meaning the youth, was born out of the Islamic Courts Union in the mid-2000s. Initially, they were the militant wing, enforcing the union's rule through violence and intimidation. But after the union's defeat by Ethiopian forces in 2006, Al-Shabaab evolved into a formidable insurgent group, filling the power vacuum left behind. Their methods are brutal and uncompromising. Suicide bombings, targeted assassinations, and large-scale attacks on both military and civilian targets are their trademarks. These tactics not only instill fear, but also demonstrate their resolve to achieve their goals by any means necessary. From the bustling streets of Mogadishu to remote villages, Al-Shabaab's terror reaches far and wide. In one of their deadliest attacks, the 2017 Mogadishu bombing, over 500 people lost their lives. Such atrocities highlight their willingness to inflict maximum damage and suffering. Al-Shabaab controls significant territories in southern and central Somalia. In these areas, they impose a harsh interpretation of Sharia law, regulating every aspect of daily life. Women face severe restrictions, businesses are heavily taxed, and any form of dissent is brutally crushed. Life under Al-Shabaab's rule is fraught with fear and hardship. Residents are subjected to public floggings, amputations, and executions for violating the group's strict laws. Yet, in the absence of a strong central government, some communities reluctantly accept their rule, seeing it as the only source of order and justice. However brutal, despite numerous offensives by African Union forces and the Somali government, Al-Shabaab remains resilient.
Ethiopian troops under AMISOM, backed by Somali National Army, fought with the militants for 9 days.
Their adaptability is key to their survival. When faced with direct military pressure, they melt into the civilian population, only to re-emerge and launch guerrilla attacks. Al-Shabaab's resilience is also fueled by a steady influx of recruits. Their sophisticated propaganda machinery attracts fighters from across the region and sometimes even from abroad. They exploit grievances over poverty, unemployment, and perceived injustices to radicalize and recruit young men. The international community, along with the Somali government, is working tirelessly to counter Al-Shabaab's influence. Efforts include military operations, humanitarian aid, and initiatives aimed at providing education and economic opportunities to vulnerable communities. Experts argue that defeating Al-Shabaab requires more than just military might. Addressing the root causes of extremism, such as poverty, lack of education, and political instability, is crucial. Building a strong, inclusive government that can provide security and services to its people is key to winning the hearts and minds of the Somali population. The Mungiki. Welcome to the secretive and highly feared world of the Mungiki, a gang that blends criminal activities with traditional beliefs in Kenya. Their name, Mungiki, means multitude, in the Kikuyu language, reflecting their extensive and elusive membership. Mungiki emerged in the 1980s as a religious and cultural movement among the Kikuyu people. Initially, they aimed to restore traditional Kikuyu beliefs and practices, rejecting Western influences. However, over time, they evolved into a powerful and feared criminal organization. In the sprawling slums of Nairobi, Mungiki's influence is profound. They control many aspects of life in these densely populated areas, from water distribution to public transport. But their power comes at a high price for the residents, who face extortion, violence, and fear daily. Mungiki is notorious for its extortion rackets, often disguised as protection fees. Business owners and residents are forced to pay these fees, with dire consequences for those who refuse. The gang's brutal enforcement tactics ensure compliance and maintain their control. Violence is at the core of Mungiki's operations. They are involved in murders, beheadings, and other brutal acts to eliminate rivals and instill fear. Their role in political violence is particularly alarming, as they are often hired to intimidate or eliminate political opponents. Mungiki's involvement in political violence extends their influence into the political sphere. During periods of political unrest, they resurface as enforcers for hire, disrupting rallies, intimidating voters, and engaging in deadly clashes with rival groups. What sets Mungiki apart is their adherence to traditional rituals and beliefs. Oathing ceremonies bind members through blood rituals, creating a deep sense of loyalty and brotherhood. These ceremonies are secretive and are a key part of maintaining their clandestine nature. Former members and local residents describe life under Mungiki as one of constant fear and oppression. Yet, for many young men in the slums, joining Mungiki offers a sense of belonging and purpose, albeit one steeped in violence and crime. Despite numerous crackdowns by Kenyan authorities, Mungiki has shown remarkable resilience. Police raids and arrests have temporarily disrupted their operations, but the gang often resurfaces, adapting their strategies to survive. Mungiki's adaptability is key to their persistence. They shift their operations to avoid detection, and their influence extends beyond Nairobi, reaching other parts of Kenya where law enforcement is weaker. Combating Mungiki's influence requires more than just law enforcement. Community initiatives aimed at providing education, employment opportunities, and support for at-risk youth are crucial. By addressing the socio-economic conditions that fuel gang membership, these efforts offer a pathway to lasting change. The Zetas. While originally a Mexican cartel, the Zetas have extended their reach into Africa, particularly through drug trafficking routes. Founded by former elite military personnel, the Zetas have built a reputation for unparalleled violence and ruthlessness.
These men are suspected of killing dozens of people in the Gulf Coast state of Veracruz.
In recent years, the Zetas have expanded their operations, leveraging Africa's strategic location and complex socio-political landscape to establish new trafficking routes. This expansion marks a significant shift in the cartel's operations as they collaborate with local gangs to build a lucrative and violent trade network. The Zetas' operations in Africa primarily revolve around drug trafficking. Utilizing established smuggling routes, they move large quantities of narcotics, particularly cocaine, from Latin America through West Africa and onward to European markets. This route not only maximizes profits, but also exploits regions with weaker law enforcement and high corruption levels. But the Zetas' African enterprise doesn't stop at drugs. They are heavily involved in arms smuggling, supplying weapons to conflict zones and criminal networks across the continent. These illegal arms flows fuel violence and instability, exacerbating existing conflicts and creating new ones. Human trafficking is another dark facet of the Zetas' operations in Africa. Vulnerable populations are exploited, with people being trafficked for forced labor, sexual exploitation, and other forms of modern slavery. The cartel's involvement in human trafficking not only highlights their multifaceted criminal enterprise, but also underscores the human cost of their activities. The Zetas' alliances with local African gangs amplify their influence and complicate efforts to combat their activities. These partnerships provide the cartel with local knowledge and logistical support, making it difficult for law enforcement to track and dismantle their networks. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting videos like this.